Today we're going to show you how to roll pretty much any character you want with Olde Swords Reign. If you play 5e, this stuff is probably still relevant as well, because a lot of the stuff from Olde Swords can be just picked up, copied and pasted and stuck into your 5e game, and you can get the book for free, so there's a link down below if you want to get it. So I want to talk about David Hoffhassle. This is one of my favourite characters, and what we're going to do is we're going to cover 3 different ways where you can roll characters, or 3 different ideas or styles of rolling a character. And yeah, like I'm going to tell you my favourites as I go along. David Hoffhassle was the idea of one of our players, Tom, and he was an old retired actor that his last show had been cancelled. He was in town. He had a shield which had a knight on it, like Knight Industries, and yeah, he was just a cool character. Unfortunately, David Hoffhassle died, but he was replaced, and we'll go into that now. So, right, let's zoom out a bit here, right? So there's a few different ways of rolling characters in Olde Swords or in any game. I'm going to start with the traditional one. This is probably my least favourite, which is the what. And it tends to be what most people do, is they will start with the what. I want to play a fighter, a barbarian, a paladin. And then they have this idea of how... It's about... For me, it feels more about the character sheet than the character. But you can do it. So... So, like in Olde Swords, we have four classes. We have expert, a fighter, magic user, and cleric. But we have feats and stuff like that, and you can put them all together to play pretty much anything. If you want to play a ranger, easy enough done. Pick a fighter, pick the quickfire, marks, or you can kind of like create your own type of ranger that you want. So here are some feats that you can pick. So you can have quickfire, marksman, so you can have a couple of shots. You can have weapon focus to be better at a bow. You can take a tracker feat. You can have an animal companion. You can have either great eyesight or hearing or smell, and you can create like a custom ranger for you. And you take a background as a hunter or something like that, and you have a character that's a ranger, which is cool. You can play a paladin, so you can play for playing a paladin. You could take a cleric or multi-classing cleric and fighter. What I would do is, as a DM, I would let you, instead of having turn undead, I would let you take Smite instead as an initial feat for your cleric, and it would feel more paladin-y. And then you've got other feats that you can take, like Blessing, Channel, Holy Aura, which are kind of healing feats, Lay on Hands. And yeah, you can create almost anything out of this, or have your DM create specific feats if there's certain abilities that you would like your character to get as they develop. An assassin. Wrong one. Yeah, so an assassin. Play an expert, and you can take contacts, either in high or low places. Disguise, hide in shadows, move silently, poison, use backstab, whatever you want. You can kind of create it or put it in there, and you can have a completely custom character that is an assassin, and take the assassin background. Monk, again, exact same thing. You can play an expert, and you can take hear noises, hide in shadows, parkour, poised to strike, these kind of abilities. There's also ability for a fighter called deflect missile. As a GM, I'd let you take that as an expert if that was the idea that you wanted to be this kind of monk type character. So like that is the what. Now we're going to go to the who. This was the David Hoffhassle kind of area. So the who is, you start with an idea of who you want your character to be, not what you want your character to be. And then you kind of do the what to fit the who. So Tom wanted to have David Hoffhassle. He was this retired actor. And we actually gave him more flavour. So we said that whenever you walked into a room, if it was older people there, you could do a charisma check and they would recognise you. But also all of the group had to do charisma checks at the start to find out whether they actually knew him. And like, I think one of them didn't believe that he was an actor. So like, he was this cool character. He died tragically, and he was replaced then. Tom decided one of his actor buddies was going to come back and get revenge, and that was Jones, Indiana. And I think we gave him a background of an archaeologist or something like that, so he could have add his proficiency bonus to all of those checks, anything he could come up with reasonably. And I think it was parkour and whip and that kind of stuff. And again, he was an older actor as well. So that's who, and those characters were super cool. Another one, Thalul. This is one of my favourite characters. Kuz wanted to play this kind of really nice barbarian type character, so he took a background of a nomad, He had a battle axe and a whip. His dex was terrible, so whenever he so some of this was taken from our actual conversation at the time. So whenever he missed with a whip, he would fly into a rage, or if somebody hit him, he'd fly into a rage. Now, rage in Old Swords is kind of cool. It's different because when you go into rage, you don't just get to snap out of it. That's not how it works. You have to roll a DC 16 wisdom check because your rage goes on for 10 rounds. So if you want to get out of it, you need to roll this wisdom check. Or when everybody else is dead, you start attacking your own party. So I let him. He wanted to pick his feats, or he wanted to pick his hindrances. So he said he'd pick 2 to try and get the extra feat. And I went, sure. So you picked Gullible and Temper, which was brilliant as well because it just fit into it more. And he loved animals. And what happened with this character then was, the one condition I said that if he was going to have all these this other way of doing it, that he needed to make wisdom his lowest stat. So he had like a 6, I think, in wisdom, and he has to hit a DC 16 check. So what would happen is he'd fly into a rage, he'd kill everything around him, and then towards the end of the fight, you'd slowly see the party start to disappear, just kind of like slowly move off screen, or hide in shadows and stuff like that. And they were kind of like figuring out how they were going to deal with him at the end, which was brilliant. And hindrances rock. In Old Swords, we have hindrances, but when people come to it, and this is something that you could easily take into 5e, when people come to it, they don't want to play characters that are broken, but once they start playing with hindrances, they tend to love them and want them. And I always say if you roll a hindrance, not pick one, you can take an extra feat, which is cool. And the reason I say roll is it adds that kind of character. We had an assassin, the assassin that was taking advantage of Thalul. He was a coward. So at the start of every combat, he had to roll a check. I can't even remember what it was. But if he failed, he would disappear for D4 rounds. He would go and hide. And nobody else in the party knew this. So hindrances are super cool. And then we have the kind of the other way, the way that I would tend to go, because I'm lazy, and that is go random. So going random, you can create some really, really cool characters. I've done a couple here, which again was completely randomly rolled, and it created a story in doing it because your mind starts to put together the pieces. So if you roll your stats down the line, so that is literally in Old Swords, it's 3d6 for each stat. But if you say at the start, I'm rolling down the line, it goes into strength. The first one, the second one goes into dex, the next one goes into con. You can't switch them around. That's your character. But if you do that, because I love the dice gods kind of helping you, I say you can take a feat. Lots of people do that. Then you choose a class. You're generally going to choose a class based on wherever your stats fell. If you roll a hindrance, you take another feat. So your character's already starting off with these cool feats, but it's going to be a little bit goofy, which is kind of cool. And then you can roll a background, or you can pick a background. For these characters, I rolled everything, okay? So I rolled a character, his stats are terrible. So like a 14 in strength, and everything else was less than 10. A 6 in dex, 5 in con. He's terrible. So I picked him to be a fighter. And then I immediately went like, what's the story the stats are telling me? And he's an old man. So that makes sense that he's crabbedy, and he's not as fast as he used to be, and he's weaker than he was. So then I rolled his hindrance, and it was combat paralysis, which would actually be really funny. You could probably play it as something else, that he takes a while to actually get started at the beginning of combat. And then I didn't want him to die super fast, so I picked his feats to be shield specialist to give him a little bit more AC, weapon focus because he's old and he knows what he's doing, and luck. Then I rolled his background, and his background was sellsword, which really fit really well. Now, a character like that would be a huge amount of fun to play, but might not last long. So I generally tell somebody to roll a second character. I rolled a second character, and these were the stats I got, which is better. So 12, 12, 10, 5 is 10, 13. So I picked him to be a fighter, and immediately I went, you know what would be kind of cool? This could be this fighter's son or daughter. That would be kind of cool. So you're almost playing, you know who your next character is, and they're going to be coming back to take revenge on this character when he no doubt dies at some point. So you're almost like creating a narrative that's within the game that it's one character in some ways. It's a story. So I rolled his background, which was seducer, and which kind of makes sense with the charisma 13. They were I rolled his hindrance, which was illiterate, which makes sense with an intelligence of 5. And I gave him some feats, like he was like a bit of a exhort greatness, so he could kind of like inspire people, and he was persuasive. Now, this for me is probably my favorite way of rolling characters for games, because I don't have lots of time, so I like the dice to decide stuff, and I think it makes a cool kind of janky character. And janky characters for me are always more fun. So yeah, so there is literally 3 different ways for rolling any kind of character you want in Olde Swords. Just 4 classes, but with feats and multi-classing, you can create almost anything you want. And if it's not there, you can. It's easy enough to come up with feats, and if you're stuck for them, like jump on the Discord or jump on the forum, and people will help you out. So I hope you enjoyed that. This one was requested by some people on the Discord, and I will see you in the next one.